This is the Netherlands in 1528. We're the number 3 great power in the world with 735 development. We own all of the Low Countries and we formed the Netherlands before Admin Tech 10 thanks to the absolutely insane brand new Dutch miner / Netherlands mission tree. We have a colony established in the New World and we're ready to establish even more, even though this is the least important area to colonize. We're heavily present over in maritime Southeast Asia and ready to trade company the entirety of the Malacca, Moluccas, and Philippines trade nodes. We've already pushed heavily into India and established the Dutch East India Trade Company as a unique trade company subject. We're running level 2 advisors and can run even higher level advisors. We're making about 63 ducats a month with no loans and no inflation and no income from gold, by the way. Ahead of time in every single tech with really good innovativeness. Exploration expansion ideas are already done, working on even more idea groups. A big portion of the mission tree complete. We have missions that let us PU Great Britain as well, along with some other very insane ones. Absolutely massive naval force limit, really strong admirals and generals. And we've already established 4 regular trade companies. And we have the unique Stadtholder Monarchy Tier 1 government reform. This is how you can do the same. Hi everyone, and welcome to today's video where we're going to be doing a guide for the Netherlands for EU4 1.37 Winds of Change. So the Netherlands is a nation that doesn't actually exist in 1444, but it can be formed with any of these Dutch miners located over here, and the gameplay with all of them is pretty much the same because they all share the initial Dutch mission tree. Obviously, for the purposes of this guide, we are going to be going with the nation of Holland, which I think is the most popular nation to form the Netherlands with, although the gameplay with Flanders and Brabant would be pretty much the same as Holland, and with these other guys right here, once again, pretty much the same, except for the fact that you don't have to break free from Burgundy. The Dutch miners and the Netherlands have been significantly updated in 1.37, with all of these guys right here actually receiving a bit smaller mission tree, but way better, because with this mission right here, we will be able to form the Netherlands before Admin Tech 10, which significantly changes the gameplay. And then the Netherlands have also received a brand new, absolutely amazing mission tree, which is way better than the one it had before, which will take us all around the world, colonizing, establishing the Dutch East India Company as our subject, fighting nations over in Europe, dominating the English Channel trade node, even PUing England / Great Britain later on, all while becoming the richest nation in the world with some of the best playing tall mechanics in the game. Obviously, as Holland, we do start off as a regular feudal nobility right here, but later on we will be able to get a unique tier 1 government reform for the Netherlands, and obviously Dutch ideas are super amazing for tall, making money, and colonial gameplay, starting off with plus 25% national sailors and plus 50% naval force limit, finishing up with plus 15% trade efficiency, and in the meantime we have plus 0.1 yearly inflation reduction, an additional merchant and 10% trade range, minus 10% debt discount, plus 25% national sailors, plus 2 naval leader fire, and plus 25% marines force limit, so a triple idea right there, plus 3 tolerance of heretics, plus 10% siegeability, and plus 10% land fire damage. These amazing national ideas paired with the amazing government reform we're going to get later on, and the tons of missions we're going to unlock after we form the Netherlands, makes Holland / the Netherlands, or any Dutch miner / the Netherlands, one of the best nations in the game. They were before, but now they're even better. So sit back, relax, and learn what you need to do as the Netherlands. Alright, here we are as Holland. Now, like I just mentioned, you can choose pretty much any of these nations right here to form the Netherlands. The gameplay as these 3 guys is pretty much the same, and with these other guys right here, it might be slightly more difficult because you will have to fight these guys right here that, of course, are all junior partners of Burgundy. Now, as Holland starting off, we are a junior partner of Burgundy. They got these 2 other guys as well, and they got Nevers, but don't worry about that. Breaking free will be super easy because we can always get a bunch of guys to support our independence. Burgundy always has powerful rivals, so nations that you can get are England, Denmark, France, Savoy, Austria, Portugal, Castile, Aragon, a ton of nations you can get to support your independence. But obviously the best nations for that are England and France, and let's take a look at the situation in my game. Actually, that is exactly the situation in my game. We got England, Savoy, and France rivaling Burgundy, and we should be able to get all 3. In your game, it really doesn't matter who you get. You can break free with anyone's support. Just try and get 2 bigger guys to support you. You could restart once or twice, but either way, before all of that, it's time to go into our estates and summon the Diet. You can choose whichever agenda is best for you. Then we're going to give the clergy religious state and clerical advisory council. You might be thinking to yourself, why are we getting these cheaper advisor privileges when it increases our staff cost? We'll lose stability when we declare the independence war, right? Wrong. This first mission right here, which requires us to have 100% of our force limit filled up, which is going to be obviously super easy, if we complete it while still being a subject of Burgundy, we won't lose stability when we declare that independence war. Alternatively, if we take that after we're independent from Burgundy, we'll just get a general and he'll have an additional shock pipe, so we are going to be doing it while we're still a subject. So no need to worry about getting these cheaper advisor and more expensive stability privileges. After you've taken those two, you're also going to take religious diplomats and clerical education. Then we're going to give the nobility primacy of the nobility, increased levies, and aristocratic councillors. And finally, we're going to give the burghers land of commerce, patronage of the arts, commercial advisory board, and indebted to the burghers. Then we're going to seize land. Next, it's time to hire some advisors. As Holland, or pretty much any nation over here, you will be making money at the start. By hiring advisors and increasing your army size, you will start losing a bit of money, but don't worry, that's not a big deal at all. One thing that I should mention is keep in mind if you choose to play as Flanders, Flanders is not in the HRE at the start of the game. So if you're going for any of the Burgundian minors for your gameplay, try and go for Holland or Brabant. Flanders will be slightly more difficult. Either way, going back to the advisors, we are going to be hiring 3 advisors right off the bat. Get whichever level 1 admin advisor you want. I'm just going to get this production efficiency guy. Get a Diplorep or improve relations level 1 dip advisor. I do have both of those guys, so I am going to hire this Diplorep guy. And then get a morale, discipline, fort defense, or manpower level 1 mill advisor. I do have a fort defense guy, so I am going to hire him. Next, it's time to fix up our army a little bit as well, so we are going to take this 5 stack over here, and then we're going to get this cavalry regiment and delete it. It is too expensive for now, and we'd rather use that money on advisors. So after you've done that, all you're going to do is also hire the free company. Next, it's time to get guys to support our independence, and like I said, there's absolutely a ton of nations that you can get to do that. Since we don't have a truce with Burgundy, we can get supporters right away, and in my game right here, let's take a look at the situation. England, France, and Savoy would all support me. Like I said earlier, France is probably the best nation you can get, along with someone else, but if you can't, it's not a big deal. I've broken free from Burgundy with the help of a ton of different nations. You can get England and Denmark, England and Austria, Castile and Bohemia, Savoy and Aragon, so it's definitely possible with whichever nation supports you. But there we go. I'm going to go ahead and ask for England's support just like that. I'm going to ask for France's support just like that. And then once these diplomats are back, I'm also going to ask for Savoy's help. At this point, we're also going to take all of these boats right here, merge them, and move them away somewhere like over here, because we don't want our boats to get involved with Burgundy or their other subjects' boats. We want to save these guys so they can do stuff after the Independence War. Now it's time to wait for about a month or two for the free company to recruit and for us to get all of these guys that we want to support our independence. Once you've asked everyone that you can to support your independence, it is time to start looking for access to run away. This is because whether we're playing with any of these guys, we're sort of trapped right here, and as soon as we declare the independence war, Burgundy and their other subjects are gonna go for us. So realistically, we need to find a way to pop out in the south of France somehow, or in the south of Savoy, or wherever you have someone supporting your independence. So what I'm gonna do is simply ask for access through Utrecht, Gelre, Cleves, all of these guys right here, just so we can get somewhere down here and avoid being crushed by Burgundy and their subjects. After you recruit your free company, you will be able to take the mission Raise the Militia right here, and you should do it immediately. Just like that, we gain permaclaims on all of these provinces right here in the Low Countries, not all of them, but most of them, and we won't lose stability when we declare the Independence War. At this point, you can also start spying on Burgundy to get sieges done a little bit faster. You should also keep in mind that Burgundy doesn't usually get strong allies. In my game, they've only allied Oldenburg and Saluzzo right here, which for me and my supporters will be super easy to piece out. It's really super rare that they get a big ally like Castile or someone like that. Once about a month or two has passed, you really want to get this independence war going right away, because if you've gotten England and or France to support your independence, you really want to declare before the surrender of Main War happens, so either of them or both of them don't get involved with that. By this point, I have asked for military access through some of these guys right here. I'm aiming to pop out somewhere down here. Yes, this mill access is gonna make us lose some diplo points, but as soon as we end up down here, we're just gonna cancel that mill access, so it's only for a couple of months, no big deal. And there we go. At this point, we're pretty much ready to declare after we've gotten our supporters and our free company and mill access through some of these guys. So what I'm gonna do is simply go to Burgundy right here. There's the Independence War. These are their subjects and these are their allies, and these are my supporters. And there we go. There's the declaration. As we can see, we didn't actually lose stability, even though it said we would. At this point, you will gain a ruler. In fact, I am really lucky here in my campaign. I've randomly gotten a 655 ruler, so I may be tempted to kill him off with the console after this war is done for the purposes of this guide, because obviously all of us will get random rulers. But whichever kind of ruler you get, it doesn't matter. You're just gonna give him mill command, put him in charge of the army, merge the free company to your main army, and start running away, just like that. Obviously, at this point, make sure to set some provinces of vital interest over here in Burgundy and their subjects, because you will want your allies transferring occupation of that over to you. In this independence war, we're not only aiming to get independent, but we're also aiming to take either Bruges or Antwerp and maybe one other province over here. Now, while this independence war is happening, let me explain the further missions right here. You will have noticed that all of these guys have less missions than they did before, but trust me, they are way more powerful. And after that, the Netherlands missions are absolutely massive, with one of the biggest mission trees I've ever seen. But after we've taken this mission to not lose stab, we need to complete these 3 other missions so we can complete this mission to be able to form the Netherlands early. And for this mission right here, we need to own 4 provinces in Flanders or South Brabant, and one of which has to be Antwerp, so that's why it's pretty important to take it. And then for this mission, we need to own 5 provinces in the Holland and North Brabant areas, and for this mission, and this is probably the weirdest one for me, we need to own all provinces in the area of Frisia. Obviously, we'll get to do all of this, and after that, we will automatically own 15 provinces in the Low Countries, which is something that we need to do in order to be able to form the Netherlands early. So as we can see, it's way better. We won't have to wait for Admin Tech 10. It's not like we're gonna do it super early at Admin Tech 5, but it's gonna be somewhere around Admin Tech 8 or something like that. So you realize that this is way better than before. That's what we're aiming for. During this war, you'll want to improve relations with Austria as much as you can. If they already support your independence, which is definitely possible, then that's great. But if not, we want to establish pretty good relations with them, maybe attempt to Royal Marry and ally them, because as Holland or maybe as Brabant, if you're playing with them, we will end up being in the HRE. So that means even though in this independence war we won't give our allies anything and they'll probably break their alliance with us, we'll still be safe inside the HRE. And keep in mind, even if these 2 guys, specifically England and France, break their alliance with you, it is pretty easy to actually re-ally them after that. Quick reminder, make sure to have cancelled all mill access here. And once you've absolutely crushed Burgundy, their subjects and their allies, it is time to peace out. And in this independence war, we are gonna get the Grant Independence right here, which means we'll be independent. And then I recommend taking one of Bruges or Antwerp for this mission. Definitely we need to own Antwerp specifically. It's not like if we don't get it now, we're not gonna get it later, but that's why I slightly recommend Antwerp a little bit more. And either way, in my game, I can't get Bruges because it has been occupied by England. And then after you take Antwerp or Bruges, I recommend taking one more province, and that could be either Ghent right here or Breda, for example, or the province of Brabant itself, even though like this, it is more than 50 aggressive expansion, which we do want to avoid. So in my game, I'm gonna take the province of Breda right here. Those are the 2 provinces I'm gonna take, and then we can also get war reps and all of Burgundy's money. Since we're gonna lose these 2 big allies right now, or whichever guy is supporting you if they desire Burgundy's land, as we can see both of those guys are mad in my campaign, we might find ourselves without big allies for a bit, which means we won't be able to fight Burgundy immediately after our truce with them is up. So that's why it is worth it to take money in war reps, even though we won't get a lot of that money. And there we go, by about 1450, your independence war should be done. And just like that, we're independent. We've got 2 more provinces, one of which is Bruges or Antwerp, and we're getting war reps. Now it's time to chill a bit, improve relations with outraged countries, and let our war exhaustion die down, because it might be pretty high by this point. If your supporters break their alliance with you now, it's no worries, that is completely expected. After the independence war, what I recommend doing is moving around your merchants a little bit. We are making money from trade, sure, but still not that much, so we don't need them in Champagne and in Lubeck. Instead, what you can do is put one in the English Channel and tell them to collect, for example, and put another one in the Rhineland and tell them to collect as well, because they don't transfer to the English Channel, and tell both of these guys to establish communities. That'll help with the improving relations. After this, make sure to set some rivals as well. Your possible rivals are going to be guys in the Low Countries. I'm going to do Friesland, Gelre, and Utrecht in my game. After Independence War is done, you are going to want to ally a couple of small HRE guys that will help you fight some of these other small HRE guys like Utrecht, Gelre, Friesland, and East Frisia. Basically, the non-Burgundy subject Low Countries guys. As we can see right there, France is threatening to break the alliance with me. It's no big deal, but what I was trying to say is, after the Independence War, you can lower army maintenance and turn off your forts to save some money. At this point, you can also get your ships right here, the light ships, and tell them to protect trade in the English Channel and go home during war. Now, you may have noticed this other branch right here of the mission tree that the Dutch guys start off with, the Hansa Relations branch, and all of these missions right here, well, these 5 specifically, focus on us sort of expanding over in the Hanseatic League and taking over centers of trade in the Lubeck and Baltic trade nodes. Personally, for my style of gameplay with the Netherlands, where I only tend to conquer the English Channel trade node over in Europe and pretty much the Low Countries region, and after that expanding through colonial nations and trade companies, I really don't tend to do these types of missions that focus on this region right here. So that's why for this guide, I'm gonna say they're totally optional. You can definitely do them in your game if you can. This one right here is actually super easy to accomplish. You either need to own Lubeck or be allied to Lubeck, or have a little bit of trade power in the Lubeck trade node to advance down this mission tree. Then we gain some conquest CBs and some nice modifiers after we conquer those provinces. But for me, I'm not really gonna focus on this. It does happen sometimes that Burgundy warns you, just like it did in my game. Really, the only thing that means right here is that we can't fight Liège. Basically, you can't fight nations that Burgundy also bordered. Right now, all of my original supporters have broken their alliance with me. That's completely normal. The only nation I'm allied to is Cologne right here, and I'm attempting to ally Bohemia. And then some other small guys around here that will help me versus these guys. After you've gotten Tech 4 in every category, and after the Renaissance has spawned, it is time to activate Encourage Development in our capital state of Holland right here, and develop our capital Den Haag up to 30 at least. It will already spread pretty quickly, and also you may get a cardinal or something like that. And by the way, the Pope is someone I also recommend establishing good relations and maybe even an alliance with, at least until we possibly go Protestant, because Holland or the Netherlands is pretty good when you play them Protestant as well. Either way, develop your capital Haag up to 30 at least to help speed up the spawning of the Renaissance and tick off the age objective for a high development city. Since it will already be at 15 development, make sure to expand infrastructure first to make it a little bit cheaper. Alternatively, you could dev Amsterdam as well, since it is pretty cheap too. It produces cloth and it has a level 2 center of trade, but it's pretty much the same. Why not do our capital? And at this point, these are the nations that I've allied. The Pope, because like I said, it's nice. Bohemia, a slightly stronger ally. The Palatinate, Cologne, and Munster. As you can notice, all of these guys are very close by to me, which means they would be willing to help versus Utrecht, Gelre, Friesland, or East Frisia, for example. After you pay off your initial burgher loans, which you should be able to do relatively quickly, you should go ahead and take new burgher loans, and with these, focus on building up your army a little bit, build a couple of galleys, and maybe put down a marketplace or two. I'm just gonna build one marketplace in Haag right there. I'm gonna build up 2 more infantry regiments, and then I'm gonna start building up some galleys. Galleys will be pretty important for this early portion of the game while we're fighting these guys right here, but later on we're definitely gonna rely on heavies and transports, funnily enough, because we will be conquering all the way around the world. And after improving with France a little bit, as we can see, I am able to re-ally them. That's perfect. So even if they've broken their alliance with you, if you've even gotten their support, it is pretty easy to ally them. And if you haven't gotten their support, it'll be even easier. So France is definitely a big ally you should aim, whether in your independence war or after that, because they will usually want to help versus Burgundy. After a couple of years have passed after independence war, it is time to start your next war, which is going to be versus one of these guys right here. Utrecht, Gelre, Friesland, East Frisia, could even be Liège. And don't worry about the fact that we're not really doing wars that quickly. As you all know, these provinces over here in the Low Countries all are decently highly developed, so it will be a lot of aggressive expansion to take them. And additionally, all of these guys are in the HRE too, which means that's even more aggressive expansion. so don't worry that we're chilling quite a bit in between wars. Either way, once you've chilled enough and aggressive expansion looks low enough, it's time to declare, so simply look for whichever one of these guys right here is the easiest to fight. In my game, Utrecht has 3 allies, Gelre has 3 allies, Friesland is allied to England actually, East Frisia has 2 allies and they're guaranteed by Munster, which is my ally, so in that case, that means I'll be declaring on Utrecht right here. So there we go, simply declare for whatever province you're planning to take. I'm gonna declare for their capital, call in all of my guys right here to make this war as easy as possible, and since Utrecht, Gelre, and Friesland all have 2 provinces, you could either take both provinces if you've chilled enough, you can take one province and then do another province later, or you could even vassalize some of them. But keep in mind, since they are your rivals, it will be pretty hard to get them loyal and it will take quite a while before you get enough relations with them to where you'll be able to annex them. So either take one province, if you're not gonna get coalitioned, take 2 provinces. There we go, I'm declaring for Utrecht. For your tier 2 government reform, I recommend strength and noble privileges. And there we go, now my war with Utrecht is done, and let's check the peace deal and check aggressive expansion. If I want to take both provinces, it is a 30 aggressive expansion, which trust me actually is quite a lot for this region over here. Just one province right here is 17, but we're looking pretty good. Let me check aggressive expansion with these other guys. It is looking okay. We'll still have to wait quite a bit more between wars if we take both provinces, whereas if I take only one province, I could, for example, fight Gelre after that for one province, fight Friesland for one province. So if you take just one, it'll be less time between wars. If you take 2, it'll be more time between wars, but realistically, in the end, after you've ended up conquering all of the provinces that you need, the time difference won't be that big, and it will be pretty much about the same no matter which way you do it. So if you want to chill more, take both. If you want to do more wars, take one at a time. It's totally up to you. I'm also going to take all of their money. And there we go. That's that war done. We're slowly advancing pretty much all of these missions right here. And in fact, now I can do this one because I do have 5 provinces in Holland and North Brabant, and that will make us lose 10 aggressive expansion with all imperial princes. Our ruler will gain a mill point, will gain legitimacy, and this event happens. There we go. Since we will be making okay money from the start as Holland or as any of these guys right here, whenever you have a couple of spare ducats, make sure to build marketplaces first. We definitely want to establish them in all of the center of trade and estuary provinces. After that, we'll get down to business with other buildings as well. Now, once you hit Admin Tech 5, it will be time for your first idea group, and obviously as the Netherlands, we are going to be doing heavy colonization. Now, in some previous guides, I have recommended that you actually don't open up with exploration expansion as Holland because we are a little further back, and even though a lot of these guys right here are colonizers, France, England, the Netherlands, as them, I usually like to take exploration expansion for my 3rd and 4th idea groups, and really the only 2 nations I open up with those are Portugal and Castile. However, in this patch right here, colonization is a lot more important for the Netherlands, and it is actually pretty important that we get started relatively quickly. Because all of these guys right here will be going for the New World, we actually want to skip that and focus on the New World later on, and instead we want to get to India and Southeast Asia right here, Indonesia, as fast as possible. So, even though in previous guides I have recommended exploration expansion for your 3rd and 4th idea groups, and I recommend taking something else right here, in this latest guide for the Netherlands, I am recommending that you do open up with exploration ideas. At this point, you can start focusing on dip because we will want to take this idea right here, the 3rd one, as fast as possible, and get Diplotech 7 as fast as possible as well to gain as much colonial range as we can. Remember, we're aiming to take provinces on the coast of Africa, skip as much as we can, and basically get to over here in Southeast Asia as fast as possible. In 1.37, we can establish the Dutch East India Company as an actual subject instead of just trade companying those provinces. Make sure to lower autonomy from time to time. By the time your truce with Burgundy expires, you will want to try and start your second war versus them to take over more provinces from their subjects Brabant and Flanders. Now in my game, if I want to declare on Flanders right here, Bohemia and France, which are the nations that I actually need, won't help me out. If I want to declare on Brabant right here, they still won't help me out. If I want to declare on Burgundy, only Bohemia will help me out. So for me, as you can see, it's not really an option. But either way, even if you can't do that, by the time your truce with them expires, it will be time for your 3rd war because aggressive expansion will have died down. So either way, since I can't fight Burgundy and their subjects, I'm gonna look to fight these other guys that are left, Gelre and Friesland, for example. Let's take a look at Friesland. They're still allied to England, so let's do that later. So instead, I'm gonna be declaring on Gelre right here, even though they're allied to my ally. No big deal, there's my next declaration. So, by the time your truce with Burgundy is up, start your 3rd war, ideally versus them, but if you can't, fight someone else. And there we go. And there we go, now my war with Gelre is done. Let's take a look at the situation. If I take both provinces, it is 41 aggressive expansion, which is actually quite high. And even though a coalition won't form, like I said earlier, it will slow us down from a lot of our other conquests. So I'm just gonna take the province of Gelre itself, I'm gonna leave them alive in this province, and we'll take care of it later. I am gonna take money and war reps. And there we go, that's my second war, with these smaller guys done. Now, since we're not conquering that much over here as any of these guys right at the start, you will find yourself with a lot of spare points, and obviously as Holland, we are going to be doing quite a lot of development in our core areas over here. So simply go into the develop interface right here, sort them by the cheapest provinces, just like that. And then obviously you're going to put some dip points into the high value trade good provinces. You're going to pour some mill points in the grain and livestock provinces. And even though sure, it's not optimal, and I'm putting this in quotation marks, the dev with admin points, if you have some spare admin points, why not go ahead and dev? So there we go. I'm pretty high with mill and admin right now, so I'm just gonna bump this province up to 5 mill development right there. I'm gonna pour in 2 admin points just like that, and there we go. Do that from time to time. Now, once you've unlocked the first idea in exploration ideas, in fact, I just did my second, you are gonna take your 10 light ship fleet right here and split off 3 light ships from it, and then you're gonna send them home to dock. After they're home, you're going to go ahead and recruit an explorer, put him in charge, and you're going to start exploring. Pretty much go ahead and select every location that you can't explore. Additionally, when you get your second idea right here, you will be able to get a colonist, and you can go ahead and choose a naval doctrine. And even though some of these are better than the others, what I recommend doing here is choosing one based on your playstyle. If you want to choose this one right here, you'll never get native uprisings, so you won't have to station armies in your colonies, but it will be a little bit slower. If you go with this one right here, it will be faster, but you will have to station armies there and fight the natives, and obviously this one is balanced. Now, the way I like to play my colonial games is usually the chill style right here, but you know, for the purposes of this Netherlands run, since we want to be as fast as possible to get to this location right here, I am gonna go ahead and choose the native repression policy, and then I'm just gonna send the free company or something like that in the provinces that we colonize. Now that a little more time has passed, I can finally notice that both Bohemia and France are able to help me out if I declare specifically on Brabant right here. If I want to declare on Flanders, obviously Bohemia won't help out. Now, for this other war versus Burgundy, our second one, we're really aiming to take provinces that Flanders owns, specifically for this mission right here, where we need to own 4 provinces in the Flanders and South Brabant areas. And those are these 2 areas right here. This is Flanders and this is South Brabant. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to declare on Brabant right here for the conquest of Brabant, but I'm probably going to take another province or 2 over here depending on aggressive expansion. So there's your second war versus your former overlord of Burgundy, ideally right after your truce with them expires, but if not, a little bit later, just like I'm doing in my game. I'm going to call in France, Bohemia, and Cologne. Obviously Burgundy is stronger by this point, they have racked up a couple of more allies, so it will be a little more annoying than the Independence War, but still, it's no big deal. And there we go, there's my declaration versus Burgundy. We're doing slow and steady wars versus all of these guys in the Low Countries. During this war, obviously, I've gotten enough stuff right here to be able to take this mission. If we do this in this way, basically without conquering Lubeck, as you can see, I'll gain a permaclaim on Lubeck and on Goatland, and there we go, I am gonna take that mission. Like I said, I'm not focusing on this, but since I could take it, why not? That is what this branch sort of guides you to, these areas right here. For your first stage ability, you should obviously take Justified Wars. And there we go, my second war with Burgundy is done, and let's take a look at the situation. So if I want to take Brabant, the province I actually declared for, and another one down here specifically, it is quite a bit of aggressive expansion. Sure, we won't get coalition once again, but once again we'll get slowed down, so I am aiming to take a little less aggressive expansion. And let's take a look at this. If I take Bruges and Ghent, a really good province by the way, it is slightly less, 38 versus 46. So even though I declare for Brabant, I'm not going to be taking it. I'm only going to take these 2. This time in my second war with Burgundy, I'm not going to take money or war reps because I do want to fight them as fast as I can. And there we go. That's your second war with Burgundy done. We took 2 in the initial war and 2 now. Now it's time to chill a little bit once again. As we can see, these guys are really starting to get angry, so we are going to look to fight maybe someone up here, like Friesland for example. Now once you rack up a little bit of cash, I just did it from taking new burger loans, you will be able to select your naval doctrine, and you will notice the unique one for the Netherlands right here, the Dutch trade fleet, which gives us plus 25% colonial range and plus 25% ship trade power. This is pretty important for the early game right here because we do want as much colonial range as we can get, so I definitely recommend that you select it for now. Additionally, after you take your third idea and exploration ideas, don't take any more. Instead, focus on getting to Diplotech 7. Make sure to seize land like I just did whenever your estates are above 50 loyalty. And there we go, we even spawned faceting in Antwerp. Very nice. Now at this point my ruler just died and I have gotten an heir right here. As you all know, my initial ruler was really strong and he did die kinda young, which is really sad, but I was waiting for this to happen so I could show you something. If you go into your government reforms, you will notice that we are able to take the Stadtholder monarchy right here, which is the sort of semi-unique tier 1 government reform for these guys over in the Low Countries. This basically turns us into sort of a republic, but not really, since it disallows Aristo and allows Pluto ideas. But we also have the Dutch elections, and it enables the statists versus orangist mechanic along with the parliament. The additional reform modifiers like the trade efficiency, heavy ship combat ability, no stab loss on monarch death, reduced liberty desire on other continents, and the VOC Indiaman ships are really good too. So whenever you have a 50 gov reform progress, and I recommend doing this after you've already gotten your tier 2 government reform, make sure to swap to the Stadtholder monarchy. And there we go, just like that, we gain all of these awesome bonuses right here. The parliament is active just like that, and you can go ahead and start a debate. All of these things right here are really nice. You're already familiar with the parliament mechanic, and this right here is the statist versus orangist mechanic. I'm sure by now a lot of you already know that when you put the orangists in power, basically that ruler will rule until the end of his life, and if you put a statist in charge, it will be a pretty much like an election, like a republic. So if you gain a bad ruler or something like that, you know, try and go for the statist, and if you get a really good ruler and he's an orangist, definitely make sure to pick that. And there we go, there's my election right here. That's why I was waiting for the initial guy to die. As we can see, the statist is a 243 and the orangist is a 444. Actually, 444 pretty good in my opinion, so I am gonna go for him. He is gonna rule until the end of his life. Remember, only take the orangists if they're worth it. After you built up all of the relevant marketplaces, make sure to focus on workshops. I've already built 3 of them in these high value trade good provinces, and I'm gonna continue to do the same. Now, something else you want to figure out over here in the early-ish portion of the game is how you're gonna fight England, and I do recommend fighting England either way. And in my opinion, you have 3 options. I did mention earlier that later we are able to get a PUCB on England and sort of form a united nation between England and the Netherlands, which is basically going to be the best of both worlds. You can definitely do that later if you want to. In fact, I do sort of recommend it. But as for fighting England, I feel like you have 3 options. The first option being you don't fight them at all now, and you only fight them later on for the PUCB, and basically you're going to take whatever they have after you PU them. The second option is you completely fight them and completely forget about PUing them. That's basically taking everything that they have over in the English Channel trade node through war. And then the final option, and I think the best, in my opinion at least, is to fight them now in the early portion of the game for anything that they may have in continental Europe in the English Channel trade node, which is basically these 5 provinces in my game right here. And then when we PU them, we'll PU them for what they have over here. That's exactly what I'm going to do in my game. You can choose whichever option you want. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and spy on England now, and I'm going to fight them, attempt to take as much as I can here, but also I'm going to make Friesland end their alliance with them so I can fight Friesland too, because we do need to do that for this mission right here. If you're allied to France, you should have a pretty easy time of defeating England. And even if you're not, it still shouldn't be that hard. Now that a little bit of time has passed again, I am going to be declaring my next war. We still need to accomplish these 2 missions right here, own 4 provinces there, and I can get around fighting Burgundy, in fact, by fighting Liège for the province of Lune. And obviously pretty soon we'll get done with Frisia as well. So that's why in this war I'm going to be declaring on Liège. Some of you may not get to fight Liège before forming the Netherlands, and that's no big deal at all. So there we go. There's my declaration for Lune, and I'm just going to call in these guys right here. No need for France. And there we go. Let's see if we can just take Lune, or maybe we'll be able to take both provinces. And it seems that France has actually beat me to my game, because I did want to fight England for these specific provinces that France declared on. No worries, no big deal. If the surrender of Maine War happens, if France takes over these provinces, we're going to get all of this later on down the line. And there we go. Now that the war with Liège is done, in fact, I'm only going to take the province of Lune, even though this isn't that much aggressive expansion. This is because I can notice something else. It seems that France didn't actually declare on England for these provinces, but England England declared on Scotland, and Scotland, as you all know, is guaranteed, or in this case allied to France. But more importantly, we can notice right here that England isn't willing to help out Friesland, which means it's a perfect opportunity for me to jump on them to take some provinces for this mission right here. So that's why this is a quick peace out versus Liège. I'm going to take only Loon along with war reps and money. We're going to take care of Liège later on. It is a province that we want, even though it's not in the English Channel, because it is in the Low Countries right here. So we do want these 4 Low Country provinces in the state of Wallonia. Either way, now that I've taken that province, I can also accomplish the second mission out of these 3 right here. This event happens and we can basically choose to make Antwerp Dutch and give it more trade power, or all Flemish provinces to lose 15 years of separatism. But now that you know these options, what I recommend that you do is, if you take this mission now, you select this and change the culture in Antwerp to Dutch. However, if you're planning to do this right here, make all Flemish provinces lose 15 years of separatism, then in that case, I recommend actually conquering all of the Flemish provinces, which are these green ones right here, before you take that mission. In my game right here, I still have like 3 of those left to conquer, as we can see right here, or actually 2. So that's why I don't really want to waste this mission by not having these 2. So that's why I'm only going to make Antwerp Dutch. For your tier 3 government reform, I recommend taking exile colonial companies. And like I said, I'm going to be declaring on Friesland now because their ally England won't join. I am going to declare specifically for their capital. No need to call in anyone here. And now that my war with Friesland is done, let's check the damage, because they have all 3 provinces that I need to take this mission right here. So if we take 1 province, it's 17A. If we take 2, it's 29. At this point, it is getting risky, and if we full annex them, it is 35. And as we can see, a coalition may form, but it won't really form because I actually have a truce with all of these guys that might join a coalition versus me. So we are good to go ahead and take them down. These are probably the easiest provinces to conquer up here because they are the least developed. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and full annex Friesland. And just like that, we are able to take this mission right here, Frisian Freedom. We gain army tradition, the nobles gain loyalty, and pretty soon we will be able to take this mission. I only need 1 more province for it. A lot of you guys, by the time you complete the 3rd one here, you may already be able to immediately take this one. Either way, with all that said, there are other things to mention during this point before I continue with my conquest. I've already taken Admin Tech 7, as you can see, and when you take Admin Tech 7, obviously for your second idea group, you're going to take expansion. That's a no-brainer, no need for that much explanation. But I've also taken Diplotech 7, which has increased my colonial range, which means I can finally colonize provinces over here. Now, if you're lucky, you might have gotten Arguin right here before Portugal and Castile did. In my game, I wasn't quick enough to do that, but if you guys could reach that, then perfect. You've already gone over there, and now you can move on elsewhere. But more importantly, you need to go to the furthest province that you are able to colonize. As we can see, the Ivory Coast is just a bit too far away from me, but I can go ahead and colonize the Grain Coast, which is exactly what I'm gonna do. So there we go, I've sent a colonist there. And you're gonna do the same. Send him to the furthest available province, not in the New World, by the way, even if you can't reach it, the furthest in Africa. If you did go with the native repression policy, just like me, make sure to send the Free Company at least to the province you're gonna colonize. When the Free Company is there, you can go ahead and assign a conquistador to them, and make sure to select this option right here so you don't have to bother with the natives later on. Sure, it will cost mill points, but I think it is worth it. Something else you need to do after you start colonizing is give the burghers grand New World charters. Now, once you pick up your second colonist right here, that's when you're gonna start focusing a little bit on the New World as well. And obviously the Netherlands missions will guide you towards the new places that you need to colonize in the New World. But either way, I'm sure you already know by now, regions that we sort of want to focus on in North America are sort of Chesapeake Bay and the Caribbean right here, and in South America pretty much everywhere, since all of this right here from South America can be routed over to Brazil and then to the Ivory Coast and then over to the English Channel. So once you get that second colonist right here, I do recommend that you start off with the Caribbean first. I'm gonna send them right here to this province specifically because it has a center of trade, and later I guess we'll be fighting Portugal for some of these provinces right here. Right now I have swapped over to native coexistence because I don't want to overextend myself with armies and such. Of course, don't forget to add everything that you conquer over in the Ivory Coast, Cape of Good Hope, Zanzibar later on into a trade company. Of course, at a certain point, the Burgundian succession will happen, which may make it annoying to keep conquering Burgundy. If they fall into the hands of Austria, I think it will be the second most annoying, because after all, you do have France as an ally at this point, and you can still continue to fight them. Now, if they fall into the hands of France, that is going to be really annoying, because as we all know, France is super powerful, so it will be annoying to take them down. But in my game, it seems that they went to Brittany, so it is what it is. Now, since we're pretty close to forming the Netherlands here, there is something that you should know. As you can see, we need only one more province. However, once you go ahead and form the Netherlands, you will automatically get removed from the HRE. So that's why you may actually not want to rush this, even though you can do it way earlier. What I recommend that you do is to first take over all of the provinces that are in HRE nations in the English Channel trade node and in the Low Countries region right here, and then, only then, forming the Netherlands. Because we do want to avoid fighting the Emperor. In my game, it's actually the Palatinate, which isn't that bad, but let's say it is Austria in your game, and they do have some strong allies, so you will want to avoid that. Either way, in my game, I will be doing it, since fighting the Palatinate, who is actually my own ally, isn't going to be that hard. An additional thing you may look out for when the Burgundian succession happens is the Imperial Incident right here, where Burgundy, or whoever their overlord is, may choose to actually release the Low Countries nations as independent nations. And the nations that could pop out in my game right here are Picardy, Hainaut, some of these other guys, Flanders and Brabant, that were annexed over here. And when they do pop out, they'll pretty much be allyless, so you could pounce on them immediately. So that's what I'm waiting for, this Imperial Incident to resolve, and see if I can fight anyone here that's allyless. And the Emperor, in this case the Palatinate, did demand that the Low Countries be released, and the nations that popped out in my game are Brabant and Hainaut over here, and Luxembourg here as well. So that's perfect. As we can see, Brabant, they're allyless. I only need one more province to form the Netherlands, so there's my declaration on Brabant, who doesn't have any allies. And now my war with Brabant is done. As we can see, if I full annex them, it's 32 aggressive expansion, and this time a coalition will actually form because I don't have truces with any of these nations. So taking just one province wouldn't be bad either, but as we can see, these guys would still be really angry. But, you know, let's not rush over here. I'm just gonna take Hertogenbosch right here because it is only 12 aggressive expansion, and I only need one more province to form the Netherlands. So we're not really in a rush. The only thing we're interested in Europe in a standard Netherlands playthrough is pretty much the English Channel and the Low Countries trade node, so it's really no rush at all. And there we go. There's my peace out with Brabant. And now that that's all done, I can finally take the mission, which will enable us to form the Netherlands early. Like I just mentioned a couple of minutes ago, I do recommend it taking over everything in the Low Countries and in the English Channel trade node before you do that, just so you can avoid fighting the Emperor. However, in my game, since the Emperor is weak, I can beat him very easily, and of course for the purposes of this guide and showing off the Netherlands and their mission tree, I am gonna do this early. In a standard playthrough, I'd conquer these guys first, then do that. Either way, you don't have to form the Netherlands right away, you can just take this mission, but as we can see, we do have the option immediately. We have all the necessary provinces and all the necessary numbers of provinces, and just like that, we become the Netherlands. As you can see, we did automatically leave the HRE, so now when we want to conquer Gelre or Liège or Brabant or Hainaut over here, we will have to fight the Emperor every time, but it's literally not a big deal. However, what is a big deal right here is the Netherlands mission tree, which is absolutely massive. As you can see, huge branches for everything else. Now these initial ones up here, up to here and here, are the ones that we started off with. You'll notice that immediately we gain another mission right here for the Baltic trade node things, and this mission right here sort of continues the expansion mission tree over here. This one relates to England right here and PUing them. As we can see, that's that mission right there. We need to have a better navy than England, we need to have a good spy network, we need to be larger than England as well, so don't worry, no need to rush that. We can let these guys get powerful, we will eventually get more powerful than them. Then this tiny branch right here focuses on our armies and defensiveness. This branch right here focuses on developing a little bit. This branch right here focuses on internal stuff and the navy. This is related to the government thingies, and this right here is related to us developing internally. And then this final branch right here is related to colonization all the way down to here. As we can see, all of these missions right here force us to go to, or want us to go to, Southeast Asia. And then we have a couple of missions here for North America as well, specifically for the East Coast, the Caribbean, Guyana, and so on. Either way, once you do form the Netherlands, definitely make sure to take all missions that you can. This one right here gives us morale and army drill gain. Northern Renaissance you'll be able to take after you have the Renaissance, which of course you will have by this point, and you'll gain the artist Hieronymus Bosch, actually one of my favorite artists of all time, as a skill 2 stab discount advisor, just like that. Definitely hire him if you want to. Then we have this one right here, which relates to us developing provinces and building buildings in them, which you will have done by this point. Make sure to take this mission because your most devved province, which is most likely going to be your capital, is going to gain a university, which is super powerful at this early portion in the game. And then if you've got colonialism and if you've started colonizing, you'll be able to take the mission Tales of Gold and Spice, which gives us more colonial range and an absolutely excellent explorer. And if you're already present in the Caribbean, basically if you're colonizing over there, which you should be by the time you form the Netherlands, you should take this mission right here as well. And there we go, the absolutely massive and super insane Netherlands mission tree is unlocked, and pretty soon we'll be explaining more of it. Now, once you form the Netherlands, you'll also notice another unique tier 3 government reform right here as well, and this is probably one of the most unique playing tall mechanics that the game has introduced, or not a mechanic, but specifically a government reform. As we can see, it's called the 7 provinces right here, and this is what it enables. So primary culture group provinces in the Low Countries, pretty much everything right here that isn't Walloon or anything like that, will get minus 10% dev discount, plus 10% goods produced, minus 25% province governing cost, and minus 10% construction cost and time, which are all absolutely insane playing tall modifiers. However, provinces outside of the Low Countries, specifically in Europe, gain plus 25% province governing cost, which isn't really bad. We can definitely handle that, but also they gain plus 33% minimum autonomy. So that's definitely geared to playing tall. In fact, very tall. The game pretty much wants you to own only the Low Countries over in Europe. And even though we're not expanding here that much, and the mission sort of maybe want us to take a couple of provinces up here and expand into the English Channel, still, all of those provinces aside from the ones in the Low Countries will gain these negative modifiers right here. Specifically, the plus 33% minimum autonomy is the one we don't like. Either way, for now at least, I still do recommend sticking with exile colonial companies since we do want to get that colonization done as fast as possible. But then later, once you're pretty much done colonizing and only focusing on conquering guys next to the provinces that you've colonized, or aren't just rushing to get to Southeast Asia as fast as possible, you definitely could swap to this because it is absolutely insane for playing tall, at least in your provinces in the Low Countries. So since for this game, we don't even really want to own that much outside of the Low Countries, only the English Channel trade node, it might be worth it. However, if you're planning to definitely stick only to the Low Countries and nothing outside of that, definitely go for this one. Now that a little bit of time has passed, I'm going to be declaring on Gilray to take over this province. We're fighting the Emperor, sure, but it's really not going to be a problem. If it was Austria, it would be a different story, and I probably wouldn't have formed the Netherlands yet. There we go, this war is done. I'll be taking this province. After you form the Netherlands, start building up a lot of transports slowly but surely. We'll be moving around massive armies all around Africa, India, and Southeast Asia, so we will need a big transport fleet. You may notice that we're not really focusing on a ton of missions right now, and that's because a lot of these missions for the Netherlands are focused on when you're a lot more powerful later on in the game. So even though we have them unlocked and we've already taken some, there's no need to specifically focus on any of them right now. Just keep doing what you're doing at this point, conquering the Low Countries, conquering the English Channel, colonizing in the regions that I said, and pretty soon we'll automatically be unlocking them. Once your colony wherever in Africa is done, send your colonist to the next furthest available province. In my game, is this one right here. We don't care about conquering or colonizing any of this right now. We're still only focusing on getting to Indonesia as fast as possible. Right now, I've gotten the burghers super loyal, and that means I can take this mission right here. We gain Splendor, and the Patronage of the Arts privilege no longer gives us a tax debuff, and the prestige is doubled. A pretty powerful mission for something that we do use quite often. Now that I've built up the Navy quite heavily and I'm still doing it more, I can take the mission Institute the States Navy for 10 Navy Tradition, Morale of Navies, and Naval Attrition. This is pretty much the small-ish naval branch right here. Now that aggressive expansion has died down a little bit, I'll be continuing my wars by declaring on Liège right here. It is a province that we want, and all of my allies will help. These wars, like I said, are a little bit annoying because we're fighting the Emperor. Once again, let me reiterate that you shouldn't leave the HRE unless you've conquered everything that you want from the HRE. By the way, after you start colonizing, you should definitely pick up higher developed colonies. And by the way, even if you have or haven't swapped to the Stadtholder monarchy earlier, eventually you will get this event, which will allow you to swap to it without actually wasting any government reform points on it. And now that this war is done, I'll be full annexing Liège. Of course, if any of you chose to form the Netherlands immediately and left the HRE, but you still have quite a lot to conquer in the HRE, you could always try to dismantle it. All you need to do is be allied to all of the electors and siege down the Emperor's capital, or siege down the elector's capital in that same war where you fight the Emperor. For your tier 4 government reform, you could go for lands for the church right about now where you're still Catholic, and you could stick to lands for the church or its equivalent when you flip to Protestant. It honestly depends on everyone game what you want to do. The Netherlands is pretty good for a Protestant playthrough, but you definitely won't make a mistake staying Catholic either. So that's why in my game for now, I will be going lands for the church, even though I might swap to Protestant later on. Eventually, whenever that is, once you get the clergy to above 60 loyalty, and you either have them with less than 50 influence or 4 privileges granted, you will be able to take this mission right here. Now that my colony down here is finished, I need to go to the next furthest province available, which is gonna be something that you're gonna be doing as well. Just going to the colonial map mode right here in the economic map modes, and now the furthest province I can get to is this one right here, Mauritius. So that's exactly where I'm gonna send my new colonist. We're always going to the next furthest available province when colonizing our way over to India and Southeast Asia. Something that's actually quite weird, but you do need to do as the Netherlands is build naval force limit buildings everywhere that you can. We will want to have a massive navy, and even though, you know, some of these ideas right here, international ideas and missions, give us bonuses to our navy, we're still not going to be taking anything like maritime or naval or anything like that. So we do want to bump up our naval force limit. Like I said, we do need quite a few transports and later on heavies and galleys as well for all of our battles over here. Not necessarily to say that we need to fight super powerful navies, but we will need to do a lot of transporting before we actually gain a massive land force limit as well, to where you could station, like, let's say, one army over in Africa to protect your trade company investments, a couple of armies over in India, a couple of armies in Southeast Asia. Before that, you'll basically have one army just like this that you'll be moving around everywhere. So definitely make sure to build at least a couple of shipyards right here. There are certain missions too, like this one right here, for example. Let me try and find it. This one, for example, Amsterdam, Friesland, Hague, Zeeland, all of these provinces need to have certain development and a shipyard or a grand shipyard building. And you do need to build docks too for certain missions, so definitely at least build them in the provinces you need to build them in. Now, as we can see, France right here is calling me into a war versus Hainaut. They are doing the same thing that I was doing, and obviously they want this province strongly. They even got cores on it, in fact, but I also have claims on these two provinces, so in fact I am gonna accept here, but I am gonna try and siege down these two provinces. Now, hopefully France doesn't actually give me both of them, because they are really high development, and if France does end up giving me both of these, I will be in a little bit of a trouble aggressive expansion wise. But either way, we do need to join, because we don't want France to end up having all three of them, which they might. Something else that's happened during this point is that I have discovered at least one province in the Indian subcontinent, and that is the province of the Maldives right here. Now, when you do that, you will be able to take the mission founding the VOC, which gives the burghers loyalty, but it also unlocks the VOC burgher privilege, which will allow us to establish the VOC as a commercial enterprise over in India. A sort of similar thing to what Great Britain already has going on with establishing the East India Company over in India. A new-ish and unique type of subject, I would say, that's not really a colony. It's also not really a trade company, because trade companies aren't subjects, but then again, it's not a vassal or a march or a junior partner or anything like that. So definitely a cool thing to do in your Netherlands playthrough. Obviously, you could own an India directly yourself if you want to, but I feel like this is very nice flavor. Now that my colony in Jamaica here is done, I am continuing to colonize the Caribbean. Once 5 provinces here are colonized, a colonial nation will form, and they'll do that on their own. Obviously, we'll help them out with conquests, but once you actually discover a bunch of provinces over in Southeast Asia, you are gonna move all of your colonists to focus on that region right there. That's our primary focus. But first, obviously, we'll establish a colonial nation here. So don't continue to colonize the New World over here if you've already established a colonial nation and you've discovered this. Focus on this primarily. And by the way, definitely make sure to trade company provinces in the Zanzibar trade node as well. As always in these colonization videos, when focusing on the old world colonies, basically trade companies, not really colonies, we want to trade company the old trade companies, which were the only ones you could do before you could actually trade company everything. And that's really the Ivory Coast, the Cape of Good Hope, and the Zanzibar over in Africa, pretty much all of India and all of Southeast Asia. So even though you can push into, for example, the Gulf of Aden, Timbuktu, or something like that, I don't really recommend going for any of those provinces. Sure, there are pretty nice gold mines over here, for example, and over here and stuff like that, that you may not want to add to your trade companies and such and push further in. But as such a rich nation that we're gonna be and already are as the Netherlands, there really is no need to colonize anything else over in Africa except for these 3 trade nodes. There we go, my ruler died. Now there's an election. If we choose this statist candidate, obviously there'll be a re-election in 4 years, but once again, the orangest candidate right here is pretty good. A 346, I'll take that any day of the week. So if both guys are weak, definitely go with the statist. Now, because my new ruler is tolerant right here, I can actually go ahead and take this mission Dutch Humanism, which gives me +2 tolerance of heretics and +50% innovativeness gain, along with some innovativeness. You'll most likely be able to do this if you get a tolerant guy as well, or a theologian advisor. We're not really aiming to take humanist ideas. Now, if you end up electing any of 2 of these guys in a row, basically if you're more than 33 or -33, you'll be able to take this mission right here, statists versus oranges, and this event happens. We can choose this first option where all orangest guys will have +1 on all of their stats, which is actually really powerful, and we unlock a certain noble's privilege. Or we can have it whenever we unlock the statist guy, we gain +5 loyalty to all estates. You can choose whichever option you want right here. Obviously this is the more powerful one, but if your random 111 guy becomes a 222, you're not going to be electing him either way. So really, it's up to you which one you pick. There we go, France ended their war and they actually didn't give me anything. Aggressive expansion is lower once again, so I'm gonna go and take care of Brabant since the planet won't even help them out. There we go. Right now I've unlocked my 3rd colonist, which is obviously going to focus on Southeast Asia later on, but because we're still not there, I'm actually going to start colonizing some important provinces over in Africa. It is more important for us to get a control of this rather than the New World. So there we go, for example, let's send them to the Cape Coast. And in my game I even spawned colonialism, which is super lucky. You may or may not do the same. Once you have 6 coastal provinces that you've devved at least once and that they have at least 1 building, you'll be able to take the mission Land Reclamation. It just gives us 5 random dev and some local construction discounts along with production efficiency. Now that Brabant has unconditionally surrendered, I will be full annexing them. And by the time your colony sorta here or here ends up finishing, you will have discovered this portion of the world, which is the most important one that we want to get into. And at this point, you should be able to colonize any coastal province right here, so you end up bordering any of the Indonesian or Filipino guys right here, and in my game, that's this province right here. So now the real gameplay starts. As we can see, my province over here just finished, so there we go. I'm gonna send this colonist over here, and then once these guys are done, basically once this guy in Africa is done, I'm gonna send him over to this region as well. And once we establish a colonial nation over here, basically once this province and another one is done, once we have 5, I'm also gonna send this guy over here as well to wrap up anything that we may have to wrap up over here. But now that this guy will get here in just about a year, this is where our main conquest focus is gonna shift to. So anything that you've conquered over in Europe is great, and you're still gonna continue to do that from time to time, waiting for aggressive expansion to die down. But this is where we're really gonna start pushing heavily with wars and fighting whoever we can to gain a dominant control over the Malacca, the Moluccas, and the Philippines trade nodes as fast as possible. Of course, by the time you're able to get here, my colonist is still traveling, you will obviously also be able to get here, and this is another major region of expansion for us, India. But you might be wondering, how do we enter India from all the way over here? We can't spy on anyone. How do we get our armies there? We can't fight anyone. And the answer is charter companies. Basically, whenever you right click on whichever nation over here, well, in this case not Vijayanagar because they're at war, but someone that's at peace, maybe like Gujarat for example, you can scroll all the way down to economy actions right here and check out the charter company action, and that basically enables us to buy any coastal province from them as long as it's not their capital and as long as we have the money to do so. So for example, I can buy all of these provinces right here. Now obviously they're not immediately willing to accept, but there we go. If I had about 3,700 ducats, they would be willing to accept, and that is how you enter India. No need to no CB someone over here or something like that. Obviously in my game I could colonize this province, then fight the Maldives, then spy on Vijayanagar, then enter like that, but this is another easy way to do it. There we go. We can do it on Orissa as well, for example, on Bengal too. Just maybe save up some money, see what they'd be willing to accept, and look for an easy way to enter. And one thing you don't want to do with these guys is, for example, gain a charter company in a province like this, for example. Like that, you have to keep pummeling the same guy over and over. In my game, Vijayanagar is really strong, so getting a province down here, that wouldn't make any sense because we'd have to keep fighting them over and over. But getting something like this, for example, that you'll border 2 nations with and maybe more once you expand, or something like this over here, or something like this over here, that is the way to do it. So look for the cheapest province to get that maybe borders 1 or 2 or 3 countries or something like that. Once you start colonizing something over here, it is time to start moving your army that way. Whenever you reach 50 innovativeness, you will be able to take the mission the University of Leiden right here, which will construct a university in Hague. If we don't already have one, you may already have one from a different mission, and if you've already done that mission, you'll just gain some development and extra innovativeness. Or you could do nothing. Why would you do nothing? I don't know. When you get the event Prospering Times, you most likely will get it in some provinces over here, and obviously the option you want to choose is the second one right here, which pretty much creates a level 3 center of trade. So we don't have a marketplace right here, but you can notice that if we want to build one, look at the bonus that we get. So it's pretty much like a level 3 center of trade. And by the way, I'm not fighting Brittany myself, I'm just helping out France right here. Obviously they're getting busy with some things right here. They are taking provinces technically that we need, but either way, you'll most likely end up fighting France for some provinces that you need, so I'll end up doing the same. Additionally, at the same time, I'm spying on Malacca right here. They are pretty powerful in my game, and a lot of these guys are their allies and tributaries, so really, no matter who I want to fight on Sumatra right here, I do have to end up fighting Malacca. If you colonize something over here, you may find yourself fighting easier enemies. It really doesn't matter. We're aiming to get all of Malacca, the Moluccas, and the Philippines, like I've said many times, and all of the trade nodes in India. Alternatively, some of you may try and connect all of this by taking out Burma and Siam as well, or even going further into China. But I feel like that's a more lengthy playthrough. Really, for a normal Holland playthrough, you want to get the English Channel, Ivory Coast, Cape of Good Hope, Zanzibar, everything in India, and everything down here. Any bonuses is pretty much over here and in the New World. Right now, I took out some burger loans, and since I have quite a bit of money, it's time to establish my charter company over in India. Let's check with Orissa right here, since I do think they are willing to give me stuff for cheaper rather than Gujarat. And in fact, you know what? I'll check Vijayanagar first. This province right here, they want actually quite a lot of money. Vijayanagar seems to be really, really rich. So let's try Orissa right here. Maybe this one right here. How much money do they want for that? And that's about, let's see, about 1900 ducats. I'm willing to accept that, but then I'd end up fighting them in Bengal. Let's see their power. So really, Bengal isn't that powerful in my game. Vijayanagar, more powerful. So yeah, this is the province I'm definitely going to go for right here. And they wanted about 1900 ducats. Let's see. There we go. That's almost about enough. And there we go. Just like that, we have purchased a province over in India, and we can establish a trade company over there. That's automatically established in the Bengal trade node. And that will be your entry point over into India. You don't even need to core that province or anything like that. In fact, if you're super wealthy, obviously you could keep buying a bunch of provinces, but as we can see, they're really expensive. It cost me about 2000 ducats, and sure, in about 100 years, 2000 ducats is not going to be a problem at all, but right now, while we're still trying to expand, it is. So around the same point that you start pushing into Southeast Asia is when you start pushing into India. For example, in my game right now, I'm just waiting for this other army to arrive, and then we'll fight some of these guys. While we're letting aggressive expansion die down with these guys, we're simply going to move our army here and fight some of these guys. Then later on, we'll be doing that to nations in Africa like Kilwa, these guys in Madagascar, Congo, any guys over here, and we'll just be ferrying our army all around the world from the Netherlands to here, to here, to there, and fighting a bunch of different wars. Later, when our army is bigger, like I said earlier, we'll establish more armies. And now that my army is here, I'll start up my first war over in Southeast Asia by declaring on Malacca. These guys' navies are deceptively strong, by the way, so even if you have a massive navy right here, unlike me, I just have transports, even if you have a bunch of heavies and galleys, still be careful because these guys get huge navies with really good modifiers. Either way, there's my first war right here. Fight pretty much whoever you want to anywhere in these 3 trade nodes. Whatever looks the easiest, the most attractive to you, definitely go for it. It just so happens that I'm doing this right here in my game. For all we could know, you could be over here or over here. It really doesn't matter. Either way, fight everyone. After you've started colonizing your 5th province over in the Caribbean, you will be able to take this mission right here, Caribbean Colonies, which gives us plus 5% naval force limit with a certain burger privilege, basically grant New World charters, which we already should have active. As we can see, there it is in my game right there. So whenever you have 5 provinces here, go ahead and take it. This mission for North America, it only requires us to own Manhattan. You'll eventually get to that. While I'm fighting this war, I'm also spying on Bengal. They're gonna be my next target. Keep in mind that during all this time, we're really maxing out on certain points and we're just continuing to dev. Really, there's no rule at this point. We're just deving the cheapest provinces in my game right here. There we go. Why not something like that? You'll be doing this all the time as well. As we can see, all of our provinces in the Netherlands are pretty high dev by this point. The lowest one is this one right here, that's 14 dev, and even that's not bad at all. And we'll continue to dev that one too. And at this point, Malacca will accept giving me a couple of provinces. Really, in one war, you want to go to about 50-ish aggressive expansion. So there we go. That's good enough for now. We're going to continue to expand over here. We're going to fight different cultured nations, different religion nations. So there's lots of areas to conquer in, even in the same sort of general region. That's my first war with Malacca done. I'll be doing quite a lot more with them later on. But there we go. There's some more provinces over in the Malacca trade node. Everything over here we're adding to our trade company. Now we're gonna chill just a bit until we core some of these provinces up, and then we're gonna continue with our wars versus Bengal, for example. Or maybe not, because they've allied the Timurids. Now at this point, I took out some more regular loans and some burger loans in order to purchase another charter company from Orissa right here, which will give me a border with Vijayanagar. Unfortunately, they don't want to give that to me. Maybe we could do something like this one right here. Let's take a look at the cost, and no, right now it's too expensive. So yeah, we did end up buying this one. We're just gonna have to plow through somehow. By the time you get to India, the big nations, which are usually like 4 or 5, will have already established themselves. So really, it's probably pretty rare that you'll end up fighting a bunch of small guys over here, which is easy conquest. You'll most likely end up with something like in my game right here. As we can see, Gujarat, Vij, Orissa, and Bengal are pretty big, and there's probably another 1 or 2 big guys over here in the region that we can't see. So because we're chilling right there and aggressive expansion is good over here, I'm gonna declare on Trier for the conquest of Luxembourg, call in Bohemia. They'll do most of the heavy lifting since the Palatinate won't come in. That's great. And since I have the money, I'll just end up recruiting like the Free Company here, for example, to help out a little bit, even though Bohemia, my ally, will do most of the work. For your tier 5 government reform, you do have 2 unique options right here. This one, which focuses more on sailors and marines and stuff like that, and actually has pretty good bonuses regarding ships can repair in coastal sea zones. Then you have this one right here as well, which is really good. Merc companies don't cost us army professionalism. We get some reinforced speed, movement speed, and army drill gain, which is sort of similar to this one, right? So for your tier 5, you could go with this. I don't recommend this one that much unless you're playing super heavily with navies, but if this one doesn't seem that good to you, you could always go with one of these, the regular ones up here. In my game, I am gonna take this one. Right now, I've established the colony of Cuba, which means we're pretty much done with this region right here. Later, we'll help them out by fighting Portugal to give their colonies over to mine, of course. And now, since this colonist has freed himself up as well, I am gonna be sending my 3rd guy over to Southeast Asia as well. I just sent 1 colonist in this province. There we go. This next guy can go right here. We're pretty much aiming to get all of these done as fast as possible. Since I'm only interested in this one province and Trier will give it to me, this war for me is done. Once you hit Diplotech 10, you will be able to take the old established the East India Company decision right here. This doesn't create anything like this new decision does after we give the burghers pillage, but we do gain some very nice trade bonuses like colonial range, global trade power, and an additional merchant. Now that my army is here, I'll be declaring my first war over in the Indian subcontinent. As you know, I plan to declare in Bengal, but they allied the Timurids and Malacca as well, so that's why I had to change my plans up a little bit. Instead, I'll be declaring on Orissa, the nation that I bought this province from. They have quite a few allies, but we are sort of evenly matched regarding our armies. So there we go. There's another conquest right there. By now you've noticed the pattern. We fought someone down here in Southeast Asia, then I went back to Europe real quick to take a province or 2. Now we're over in India, and after this we'll continue to do the same, swapping between these regions. Later we'll throw Africa into the mix as well. Keep in mind that with a lot of these wars right here, you will be a couple of techs, at least 1, over the nations that you're fighting, so even though they may have a troop advantage, as long as it's not too big, you still should be able to win all of these wars. After you've colonized all of the provinces in Malacca right here, like I have, or I'm still colonizing them, but a colonist has freed himself up, you will want to get down with the clove provinces over here. If you click on these provinces that already produce cloves, you will see the other ones that can produce cloves, and in my game it's these 5 right here. So make sure to focus on these super early as well. Additionally, you can vassalize one of these 2 nations right here, Tredore or Ternate, and if the other one doesn't exist, the other one that does exist, basically that is your vassal, will start colonizing some provinces here of their own. You can do that if you want to, totally optional. At the same time, while that war in India is going on, I'm actually going to pounce on Hainaut right here because it is a really good opportunity since France is willing to help out. So there we go. There's another conquest in Europe simultaneously to take care of a few more provinces in the Low Countries. Really, in my game, I've only got 3 more of them to go. This war is actually done faster than the other one, and now that Hainaut has unconditionally surrendered, I will be full annexing them. And there we go. I only need the province of Lille right here, which is owned by Brittany, because it inherited it from Burgundy. That's the final province I need in the Low Countries. France has expanded a little bit over here in other English Channel trade node provinces, but it's no big deal. We'll take them down, maybe even way later in the game, maybe after we PU Great Britain. It really doesn't matter. You will be conquering this eventually. And by the way, don't worry if France has pushed even further into the Low Countries. All of that will be taken care of. Now that my war with Orissa is done as well, these are the provinces that I'll be taking. Once again, up to about 50-ish aggressive expansion in each region. And there we go, we've taken some more provinces over here. We will add all of these to the Bengal trade node trade company. And now that we have at least 4 of them, we can actually grant the VOC privilege to the burghers that will enable us to establish it as a commercial enterprise. Let's take a look at it. This is the privilege right here, all the way at the bottom. It also gives us a minus 10% trade company investment cost. It is pretty good, just be careful with burghers' influence. And there we go. Now that we've granted that, we can go ahead and take this decision. And there we go. That is the VOC right there. It is our trade enterprise. So you could obviously keep a hold of these provinces for yourself and add them to a trade company, or even not add them to a trade company for some reason. Or you could do it in this way, where you basically feed it off to your subject. Just be careful not to overextend these guys way too much. You can't feed them like 50 provinces at once, so be careful with that, or else they'll stop coring and they'll go into a death spiral and stuff like that. You may want to sort of support them while they're still small. This is obviously more of a flavor addition than anything else. Is it the most optimal thing to establish these guys? I honestly can't say that. I don't think it is. I think it might be a little bit better to have it as your own direct regular trade companies like we've been doing with everything else that we're conquering, but it's definitely a nice and cool way to play. There are also very interesting things you can do with the VOC right here. If you click on them and scroll all the way to the bottom to modify subject relationship right here, there are various sort of privileges that you can give them. Basically, if we allow autonomous trade, it'll give them domestic trade power, reduce liberty desire. If we do this, they'll make more from tax. If we do this, they'll have more manpower. This is regarding the navy. This is regarding the boats. It allows them to have the Indiaman ships, which are really powerful, that we have, by the way, or that we will have. This gives them more merchants. This one right here gives us a merchant, but it reduces their merchants. So really, some of these help us out. Some of them help them out. When you get the event Radical Reforms for 200 admin and diplo points, you can fire these guys, get the points, and hire them back. Well, in my case, that one guy died, but you get the point. And now let's continue our conquest over in Europe by declaring for the final Low Countries province. Brittany is allied to Great Britain, but luckily France will help out. And now that Brittany is willing to give me these 2 provinces, I am gonna go ahead and peace out, since for this war, that's the only thing I want. And there we go. Just like that, we've conquered the entirety of the lowlands, and we've started our additional expansion over in the English Channel. Some of you may have been more lucky than me, or more on time than me, and you may have fought England/Great Britain for these provinces earlier. In that case, that's great. At a certain point, obviously, you'll be able to take the mission Cloth Trading, which will make all provinces in the Low Countries that are not Flemish and produce cloth gain plus 20% trade value. Right now, I just got Admin Tech 10, and normally this is when you would be able to form the Netherlands, but thanks to the brand new mission tree, we formed it way earlier. Either way, once you get to Admin Tech 10 for your 3rd idea group, I feel like you have a couple of options. Since as the Netherlands, you can continue to go all in on that whole economic thing that we're doing right now, you could obviously pick up an economically focused 3rd idea group, and out of those I would recommend infrastructure right here, which is actually super powerful for the Netherlands. This minus state maintenance and global prosperity is great. That construction discount along with all of the other construction discounts that we're getting is absolutely going to be awesome. Expand infrastructure right here is great too, because we will potentially want to expand infrastructure later on in a bunch of different provinces, not just ones that we're specifically deving for certain institutions. We will want to get 2 manufactories up and running at the same time. The center of trade upgrade cost is great, especially for your trade companies later on. States governing is great, fort maintenance is great, but the construction time and the development discount right here are super important. Then you have a couple of other ideas, economic ideas. You already know them. All of these modifiers that we get from economic along with the merchant would stack really well with everything we got going for us. And then of course, like I mentioned at the start, you could go for trade. Some may say that taking trade, if you already have exploration expansion, if you're getting the colonies and trade companies up, is redundant because you already have so many merchants. But in my opinion, all of these bonuses reinforce what we're already doing so well, and it's gonna make it even better. So that's why I think trade isn't a bad pick at all. So that will be your 3rd idea group if you're leaning heavily into the economic playthrough. However, if you want to shy away from the economy just for a little bit right here and stabilize your country in a different way, I do recommend picking up a mill idea group for your 3rd one. So you could go with something like quantity, since we're going to be so extremely rich, but our force limit may not be that huge, basically we'll be able to build much bigger armies than the game lets us, you might want to pick up quantity over here. It's definitely going to be very useful. If you want to buff up your army and navy even more, then there's always quality ideas. An all-around great idea group pick meshes really well for all of the Netherlands things. And then you have offensive, and then Pluto is of course a sleeper pick as well, reinforcing our economy as well as our army too. So you have a couple of options. Either way, if you decide to go the economic route, definitely pick up economically focused idea groups for your third and fourth one later on too. So if you take infrastructure now, go for trade later or something like that. If you're going for a mill one, however, I still recommend picking up 2 mill ones right after the other as well. So maybe quantity and quality, and or quality or quantity, something like that. So those are my recommendations. And then you could take the other ones that you didn't take previously. So if you're going for economic ones, take them for these two, and then the mill ones here. If you're going for mill ones, take them for these two, and then the economically focused ones right here. In my game, I do want to buff up my army quite a bit, so that's why I am gonna go with quality ideas. Something that I haven't mentioned so far is that we do have a couple of great projects over here that we even start out with in the province of Amsterdam. We got the Dutch polders, which is already at tier 1. It gives us some goods produced along with local defensiveness and minus monthly devastation. It's really good if you upgrade it to tier 3, especially for that plus 10% goods produced. And then we have the Amsterdam, whatever this is right here, which at tier 3 is once again really powerful for the trade company investment cost. And if we complete a certain mission related to it, it'll also give us trade steering and yearly inflation reduction, along with some bonuses in the province itself. Any other great projects that you might get to conquering right here in a standard Netherlands playthrough is the stuff over in London, which isn't bad at all either. And around the time the Protestant Reformation spawns, which it just did in my game a little bit late, your realm should look a little something like this. Basically, we start off as whichever Burgundian subject you decided to play with, or maybe even not a Burgundian subject in some of these guys right here, and by slow and steady conquests, taking 1 to 2 provinces at a time, we've conquered pretty much the entirety of the Low Countries, and depending on the opportunity in your game, maybe even expanded more into the English Channel. And thanks to the brand new Netherlands/Holland, or whichever Dutch minor mission tree, you were able to form the Netherlands super early, and maybe you did it way early like I did in my campaign, or waited to conquer all of the provinces in the HRE before doing so, because as you all know, it does kick us out of the HRE. But after breaking free from Burgundy in my game right here, it was slow and steady conquest, taking some necessary provinces right here to accomplish the initial missions right here, these 3, which enabled us to accomplish this one right here, which is the one that enables us to form the Netherlands. And all during that time, we weren't only focusing on conquest, obviously we were focusing on improving our economy as well, because it's absolutely insanely easy to do as any Dutch minor or any nation that forms the Netherlands over here. I'm going to show off what I've built specifically in my playthrough right here in these provinces in the Low Countries. As we can see, marketplaces are built up in all of the center of trade and estuary provinces. Workshops are built in almost every single province right here, except for this one that I just conquered, and these 3 don't have one because they produce cows, but all of these other ones right here are high value trade good provinces, which means all of them have workshops now, and all of them will have 1 or maybe even 2 manufactories later on. Churches obviously present in almost every single province. There we go, there's 2 more right there. A couple of army buildings here and there, and like I mentioned at the start, you do want to build shipyards in most of your coastal provinces right here, because we do want to gain a massive naval force limit, which is now even more massive thanks to certain modifiers that we have, but earlier on we definitely needed those buildings. So that's what you were doing right here, because when conquering this region right here, there is obviously a lot of aggressive expansion. These provinces have really high development even before we were deving them, and they were in the HRE as well. So that's why we really have to take it slow, and it's really no rush in conquering this. But that is sorta what your playthrough, specifically in Europe, by this point should look like. Like I said, maybe you've conquered more into the English Channel. But this is not the only region we were focusing on, because even though you're going to be playing tall as the Netherlands and maybe not owning that much provinces over in Europe, you are going to be dominating the rest of the world, whether through colonial subjects like the East India Trade Company over here, or through trade companies, traditional trade companies by the way. That is where you've been focusing. So since we picked up exploration expansion, our main goal was to get to Southeast Asia as fast as possible. These are the provinces that I hopped through in my game right here. This is the first one I colonized. After that I went to this one right here. After that one I went to this one right here, and after that it was this one right here. So really it's about 3 to 5 provinces before you get the maritime Southeast Asia right here, and this is your primary region of focus after you actually get there. You can definitely slow down your conquests in Europe if you don't feel like you can juggle multiple things at once, because that is really where the important thing starts. So after colonizing a couple of these provinces, we finally made it over there, established a foothold, and of course we start fighting all of these guys right here, with our end goal being of conquering, at least in this region, by the way, at least the Malacca, Moluccas, and the Philippines trade nodes. But if you could reach this, obviously you could have also reached India, and that's why I showed you how to gain a foothold in India by buying a trade company from some of these guys right here, which obviously you should have done. Try and go for a border province like this so you can fight multiple nations at once. This is the charter company that I bought and then expanded over here, and of course by completing a certain mission and by giving the burghers the VOC burger privilege, we were able to establish this unique East India Trading Company subject right here, which is a unique trade company type of subject, and this is who we're gonna give pretty much all of India to. Like I mentioned earlier, is this better rather than owning the provinces yourself and making them into traditional trade companies like we're doing over here? I don't know if it's better, but it's definitely very, very flavorful and very, very cool for me, so that's why I recommend doing it if you want to have a more fun playthrough maybe. But if you're a min-max or take a look at the stats, definitely it might not be better to establish this. But either way, you definitely have a foothold in India by now. You should have done a war or two here as well, just like a war or two here, and you should definitely have a pretty large presence in India, even though the wars are going to be pretty tough because it's mostly going to be big guys left. So whether you own provinces here directly or you've given them to the VOC, you should be there either way. Going back over into the New World right here, at a certain point you should have had a free colonist that would have been doing stuff for you over here. Like I said, this isn't our primary focus, and none of the New World is, not even Australia right here. Our primary focus is gonna be the Ivory Coast, Cape of Good Hope, Zanzibar trade nodes. These three over here, and all of these ones in India, specifically Gujarat, Deccan, Coromandel, Bengal, and Doab. The other ones you don't gotta worry. And like I said, Burma, Siam, and the Chinese ones are just bonuses for a further bigger playthrough. But once you get done with these colonists right here, since all three of them should be working in Southeast Asia right now on the close provinces, that's where they're working in my game. And in fact, I'm really unlucky since I've only spawned one out of the four that I've colonized. Once you're done colonizing pretty much everywhere in these three trade nodes that I mentioned, you should take all three of these guys and get them back over to Africa to colonize anything that's uncolonized in the Zanzibar, Cape of Good Hope, and Ivory Coast trade nodes over here. After you colonize everything over here, the rest obviously is going to be conquest, maybe with some European guys, maybe with some African guys. After that, after you're done with this, then you're going to take your colonists over to the New World and take care of everything that hasn't been taken care of just yet. Really, you can colonize pretty much anything you want, whether in North or South America, since we do have where to route everything. You can push everything to the Caribbean, then you could route it to somewhere over here. If you have a high enough trade control, you could push that to the English Channel. If not, everything up here you could push to the English Channel, and everything down here you could push to Brazil, and then to the Ivory Coast, and then to the English Channel. So really, the game does sort of guide you with these colonization missions where you sort of need to colonize. As we can see, a lot of it is pretty much Southeast Asia over here, just one mission for North America and just one mission for the Caribbean and one mission over here for South America. Most of this right here is all over in Asia, so that's where you should be focusing on. So the colonists, after you're done with here, then go here, or maybe even Australia if you want to. And after this point, you continue to expand in the same regions we've already been expanding in, basically finish off the Low Countries region over in Europe if you haven't already. After that, go for the English Channel. Like I did mention earlier, we do have a mission to PU Great Britain later on and even form the United Crown Nation or whatever it's called, getting the best of both ideas from Great Britain and the Netherlands. You can definitely do that if you want to. And like I said, there's a couple ways to conquer the English Channel. You could either not do anything with it and get everything from Great Britain. You could either not PU Great Britain and conquer everything yourself, or you can go with the half and half route, which I prefer, which is basically conquering the English Channel trade node provinces and mainland Europe for yourself, and then PUing Great Britain for the rest of it. That, I think, is the best option. But either way, after this point, you're going to diversify your conquest, do one war in Europe, then go down here. Fight one war here, then go to India, fight one war here, then if you have something in Africa, maybe something like this, go ahead and hit Ashanti or Benin or Congo or something like that. Then maybe you could help out your colonial nations in the New World, and then pretty much that's how we're diversifying our conquest. A war here, a war there, a war there, a war there. Just keep changing everything up so you avoid coalitions and minimize aggressive expansion. After this point, of course, you'll continue to focus on the economy. You should have been developing heavily this campaign. As we can see, the lowest dev province for me is this one right here, which is 16 dev, which is honestly not bad at all. That is considered a very high development province at the start of the game, but I've been pouring various development into various provinces over here, and as we can see, absolutely all of them are fully stacked right here, and you'll be continuing to do that because you'll be overflowing with points very often. Definitely continue to build all of the relevant buildings, build the manufactories later on when you unlock them, expand infrastructure so you can build 2 of them, basically one of these and one of this right here, build courthouses so you don't struggle with governing capacity later on, and of course, don't forget about the most important thing, trade company investments. Pretty much in every single area or state, build these level 2 ones, and then in one entire trade company region, you're gonna put down whichever one of these do you think is the best. Basically, whichever works for your game. The force limit ones are great, everything is great, do what suits you. This is what we took for our first 2 idea groups, exploration, expansion. In previous guides for some of these northern colonizers, I haven't recommended that, but for this early Netherlands formation, I definitely do. So after exploration, expansion, I just explained it a couple of minutes ago, either pick up 2 economically focused idea groups, one right after the other. So for your 3rd and 4th, get 2 out of trade, economic, or infrastructure, and then get the mill ones for your 5th and 6th, or do the other way around. Take 2 mill ones right here for your 3rd and 4th, and then the economically focused ones for your 5th and 6th. It's pretty simple. This is what we took for our first 5 government reforms. You could either have taken the stadtholder monarchy early on or waited for the event. It's totally up to you. Then for tier 2 is strengthen noble privileges, exile colonial companies. Even though we have this super unique and very, very cool playing tall one, I only recommend taking this one if you're staying specifically in the Low Countries. If you're gonna plan to conquer the rest of the English Channel, I do not recommend this one that much. Lands for the church or the Protestant equivalent is pretty good for Catholic or Protestant, otherwise maintain the balance of power. For tier 5, we have 2 unique ones. This is the one I went with. If you don't like these, go for these right here. For tier 6, I recommend Royal Decree when absolutism comes around. Before that, you could go aristocratic court. For tier 7, I recommend meritocratic recruitment. For tier 8, pretty much all of these, honestly, are really good as the Netherlands, so take whichever one you want. At that point in the game, you won't make a mistake with either one of them. For tier 9, I recommend the 6 books or the social contract. And for tier 10 and tier 11, all of them are really good. Take whichever one you want. At that point in the game, you won't make a mistake with either one of them. And like I said, around the time the Protestant Reformation spawns, your realm should look a little something like this. If you're not that confident in your abilities, or if you're not sure if your game is gonna go like mine, this save file is available for all YouTube members in the Save Games Discord channel, and you can continue playing as the Netherlands from this state forward. Let me know in the comments below what's the next nation that I should do a guide on. If you enjoyed this video, don't hesitate to leave a like, it really helps out a lot, and if you like the content and want to see more videos like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of them. And you can become a member today and join the Discord, the link is in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time with another EU4 video.